So my name is Tom Hernowich. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Dream Exchange. I'd like to welcome everyone who is in attendance today. And as Joe has mentioned, we have a very kind of new type of program for you. I think it's going to be very exciting. And with us today, in the bottom left, at least on my screen, we have Dwayne Kiles, who is the managing member of the DreamX Capital Group, which is the majority owner of the Dream Exchange. To his left is Gus Tucker, who is our Director of Client Development for the Dream Exchange. And then to my left is Joe Sakala, who is the founder and CEO of Dream Exchange. And so today what we'd like to do is really have a panel discussion. You're going to hear from all three panelists this afternoon. And we have a series of questions that we've developed. A lot of these questions have been given to us over the last couple of years. And so we thought it would be a really kind of a unique way of being able to answer these questions in a single kind of format, panelist format. And so what we would like to do is as you hear or other questions come to mind during the program, please use the chat to ask those questions, and we will spend time going through that. So that sounds like a plan that we're going to embark on. So without further ado, I'm going to start the program with really basically with Joe, and just really wanted to know, I think, to be able to kind of set the tone of the program today. Can you share with us, really, with our audience, what is the vision and the mission of the Dream Exchange?
So we've been really pounding what I call a labor of love for many years, and screaming from the ramparts the need for the Dream Exchange, the need for capital markets. We've been calling it the underserved communities. That's a really nice way of saying that there are communities, especially the Black community in our country, that hasn't participated meaningfully in the U.S., and I mean the national capital market system, stock exchanges, public companies. So we're going to talk to you today about all of that, but the real mission is to channel the flow of public capital and American capital into small businesses, especially in the minority community, and see the people who have the greatest imagination, the greatest ideas, great businesses that need to expand, and they need capital to expand, and to get them meaningful help. Now, one of the things that we've done at the beginning of the webinar, I think it's been very successful, is we have I love this video for various reasons. Our marketing team, and my son is actually on the marketing team, so it's a little near and dear to my heart. We've prepared a video about our purposes. I think it really speaks to what the Dream Exchange is. It's a couple minutes long. So I'm going to play the video. I know we need to put our audio and visual off, so the part will disappear from the screen, and you're just going to see the video for about 3 minutes, and it really does outline the purposes of the Dream Exchange really, really well. So without further ado, we will commence.
We view this as a real mission to change our society. And the truth is that 120 years ago, you couldn't travel to the store without a horse and a buggy. You couldn't travel interstate without getting on a train. And since that time, well, clearly no one would consider taking their horse to the grocery store. You get in a climate-controlled vehicle. We live in a technological society where we have wireless communication that never existed before. We've changed the way human beings live on Earth in the last 120 years in such a profound way that it's almost difficult to imagine that we're not all thriving and that there are people who are barely surviving. And the reason that innovation came to be is because capital markets supported the most imaginative ideas. We gave our money to things that would expand our ability to survive, and we've all been better off for it. And it is across all diverse marketplaces, across all people everywhere. And we're concentrating on developing markets in areas where The greatest ideas are in fact born, and we want to get them access to the money they need to expand upon that. That's really what the Dream Exchange is all about at its core purpose.
Oh, that was great. It just went right. I didn't have to push any buttons and I came right back in. So,
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to that. I hope that answered your question, Tom.
So, I think maybe really starting off the program after this, how does, and I'll maybe direct this this question to Dwayne, how does the Dream Exchange name align with really the two exchanges that we are going to be launching here? Dwayne, can you kind of talk about that? And we'll talk further about the specifics of the two exchanges here in a moment, but let's kind of focus a little bit on the name, the Dream Exchange, and how does that align with what we're doing?
Well, it's a good question, Tom. I was involved, fortunately, years ago with the development of the actual name. It was not something that we just kind of sat around in a circle and decided that would be a neat thing to do. I mean, there was a very, very high-level person in the advertising industry who helped us to work through a series of exercises. And really, I mean, there were probably 10 people involved in a day-long exercise to come up with something that really spoke to the passion that had been invested by Joe and his teams over the years, and trying to figure out how to help capitalize underserved businesses or businesses in underserved communities and small businesses in general. For people who have fewer assets and fewer resources, a dream is not the same for everybody. If you've got a lot of resources, you talk about a dream, your dreams are pretty much achievable. If you've got resources, you can dream about, flying to Switzerland and climbing the Alps one day, but that's really accessible. It's really a matter of timing, logistics, not whether it can actually happen. The Dream Exchange and the Venture Exchange have been conceived with the idea that we would actually make the dream of owning a business, of being able to take care of your family, of being able to actually accumulate wealth that could be passed down to future generations. That's a dream that for most people, I mean, the vast majority of people, has been historically unattainable. Just unattainable. It's unattainable. Now, and particularly in communities of color, in the African American community, no matter how hard you work, you can do all the right things, play it by the rules, play it by the book. But though that did not get you any closer to that dream necessarily, except in really, really rare instances. I mean, you can count the percentages, the numbers, which Gus and you guys will go into later, will really tell that story. But the other part of this for me, now that making dreams accessible with both the Dream Exchange, the National Market System, as well as the Venture Exchange, which will be our stepping stone to the National Market System, is something that we came up with as a group. The idea of, for me, coming out of the civil rights movement, having a father who was very, very active in the movement, who spoke all over the world about Dr. King's dream and how it is that he communicated to the world the dream of equality for all. So for me, every time I think about the Dream Exchange, I think about how it is that I'm able to stand on my father's shoulders as he stood on the shoulders of people before him to really make the dream of business ownership, of self-determination, of being able to really see your family thrive, your community thrive. That for us has been pretty unattainable as a reality. Conceptually, we've never given up on it, but it really has been extremely elusive for us. I don't want to get hung up in hyperbole, and I don't want people to think that I'm overstating the case when I say that the Dream Exchange, because of what it is that we will be able to do, is the best chance that I've seen in my lifetime, and I'm no spring chicken, for really achieving the kinds of dreams and helping other people to achieve their dreams for their families, for themselves, for their communities, particularly in the Black community. It just has not existed before. There's been nothing that has really approached it from the scale, the magnitude of what that is similar to what it is that we're doing. I won't say attempting, what we're doing and have been doing. We've been on this path a long time, but we are getting to the point where this is really about to happen. So I think the Dream Exchange could not be a more fitting name for what it is we're going to do. We're going to make people's dreams come true.
Thank you, Dwayne. That's a great response. Thank you for that. With that kind of framework or that kind of introduction, I'm going to ask Gus a question. Gus, now specifically, how are we going to solve these problems? What problems are you solving, and how does it benefit? What are some of the things that we're looking to solve specifically with the Dream Exchange?
Yeah. I appreciate that, Tom. That's a good question. As Dwayne talked about, I think one of the first things for a dream to come true is that people need a vision of what's possible. And so one of the first things the Dream Exchange is going to do for the entrepreneur is give them a vision of what's possible and to give them a pathway to get on and to travel to make their dreams come true. Sometimes what you see creates hope. And if they can do it, then maybe I can do it too. Right. Because in a lot of ways, we are a startup company as well, much like the companies we'll be working with. We're developing and growing a business just like the people we're supporting. And when they see this business grow and happen, they'll be able to say, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And when they see a stock exchange owned by Black investors and with Black faces in significant management roles, they'll say, whoa, maybe this is different. I spent 25 years in 4 Fortune 100 companies. I never saw that. Never, not once. Okay. Additionally, practically what we're going to do is solve the access to financial and human capital. Businesses need money to grow, and they need access to people to grow. Those people have the money. So once you get access to the money and you get access to the people, then other things will open up. For instance, access to customers, access to strategic relationships. Because right now in the capital markets, there's $5 trillion in private equity, trillion with a T. The U.S. economy is 14 trillion. That's $5 trillion. And 3% of that goes to people of color and women-owned businesses. And Black folks alone are 13% of the population. If you consider all the other brown folks and women, and you look at 3%, something's not adding up. It's been that way for a long time. This didn't just happen overnight. As Joe has mentioned numerous times, 1% of the companies listed on all the public exchanges, less than 1%, in 230 years of exchange history since 1790, when the Philadelphia Exchange started, 1% of the companies have been Black owned. It's like 0.022%.
Right. It's actually much less than 1%.
Right.
So we're here to fix that. Okay, so between the Dream Exchange and the Venture Exchange, which will get explained, we're going to help companies get access to the dollars they need and the people they need to really make their dreams come true. So that's what we're going to provide: hope and a vision, and access to funding, and access to those people and strategic relationships that people need.
Anything else, panelists, before I move on to the next question?
No, that was perfect.
I thought it was very well done.
Yes.
So maybe as a follow-up to that point here, and Dwayne, maybe you can kind of start things off here. Is the Dream Exchange only for Black and brown companies? And maybe also kind of tying in as well is why is being Black owned important from your perspective?
Well, that's an important question because we don't want people to think that the only companies that we're interested in helping are Black-owned companies. That doesn't really get us where we want to go, and especially initially, because in large part, many of the companies that we want to help that need the most help are not really ready to be thrust into the marketplace, with lots of capital that they wouldn't know how to deploy because they've had so few resources from a professional standpoint to prepare themselves to take the money and to deploy it in ways that make sense and are going to be most beneficial to them. So while we're building that, there are millions of businesses that come in at less than 100 million in revenue. In the capital markets today, if you're not doing over $100 million in revenue, they don't really have much time for you. And, to people, and I think this is an important point to make, because a lot of people, particularly Black people, think that when you start talking about these big businesses, big business for us is, $10, $15 million. I mean, you're rolling, you're rolling, But when you start talking about the real capital markets and how the market direction is really a function of forces that are beyond the control, actually, of a lot of individuals. The reason, at one point, 80%, and Joe, don't kill me if I get this wrong, but some 80% of the businesses that were going to IPO or capital markets that were being paid attention were below $50 million. 80%. Now, with the advent, particularly with the what do you say, Joe?
Yes, sometimes 90%. I mean, it depends on the year, but you're no, I won't kill you. You're spot on.
Good. All right. So with the advent of electronic trading, and Joe has talked in previous webinars about his role and how he came to really know and understand these facts. But with the advent, particularly of electronic trading, which kind of took some of the human element out, a lot of the human element out of the whole process, that number has flipped. It has flipped so that now 80% of the deals that are done are companies that are way over it, probably over 100 million, versus all those small businesses who are relying upon these capital markets for their growth. Where have they gone? They're not being entertained by the 7 exchanges that currently exist. They're not. They simply do not generate. It's like, if you're in business, it took me a long time to understand as an entrepreneur that I couldn't understand why banks were so uninterested in a startup business. If I had an opportunity to make $5 million, well, why spend the same amount of time and resources to try to figure out a $5 million deal if you can do one that's for $50 million? They generate more fees, for a similar amount of effort. I mean, it's just market forces. It just doesn't make sense at some point to spend your energy on things that are going to generate less revenue. People are in business to make money. And if you make more money doing bigger deals, then you're going to do bigger deals. That's just the reality of it. So when you start talking about helping small business, all those small businesses that were getting access to the capital markets that have now been left to the pink sheets, the over-the-counter trading, all of the cottage industry of charlatans out here who are telling you that they'll help you figure out how to put your stuff together. Well, those companies have really grown, and a lot of small businesses have suffered as a result. So we are going after small businesses. If we want to grow this, it would be really unintelligent for us not to look at the millions of small businesses who are doing less than 150 million, 100 million in revenue, who need to make it to those markets. We can be that conduit. So we're going to make sure that we create that avenue for whomever it is. Now, if you're investing as a Black person in the Dream Exchange, as we grow, your investment, the value of your investment grows with us. So, we are still benefiting as Black people who have a not wonderful or not terrific track record for investing for a lot of reasons. Primarily, we don't have enough money to invest. Secondarily, we're not raised sitting around the kitchen table talking about investing for the most part. So having that understanding that your personal wealth and the wealth of as a community will grow, which provides more capital to put into these other businesses, that we want to get as many resources into the pot as possible for our investors and for the people we're trying to help. That was really long. I'm sorry. That was really long.
That's good. That's good. That's good. We haven't heard from Joe a whole lot, so I'm going to direct the next question to Joe.
Come on, Joe. We love you, Joe. Come on. Yeah.
I was a young second lieutenant in the Army almost 30 years ago, and I learned my job, which was make sure I got out of the way when guys were doing good.
All right.
So, well, let's turn a little bit here in terms of, other than being Black owned, and that's a very important point as we've talked about. What other points of differentiation does the Dream Exchange bring to the market?
Right. And this kind of underscores what actually it's a nice flow we have, because this will underscore both of what Dwayne just said and what Gus is saying. Here's what's different. People really haven't grasped what a stock exchange and how a stock exchange is different from a stock brokerage in the marketplace. Even some of the best financial professionals that I deal with, they think of a stock exchange, they think, oh, that's like an investment bank or a stock brokerage. It's not. The fact is that a stock exchange really is there to carry the traffic in the national system of the buying and the selling of stocks in major U.S. corporations. On the other hand, there's a second purpose. I wouldn't say it's secondary, but it's simultaneously a purpose of a stock exchange, which is to develop new listed companies. And what we just talked about is historically, small companies were of great interest to stock brokerages. They're the ones who cobbled together the transaction and met with the customer and brought the company along and found the investors and sourced all the funds. And they did a lot of laboring work for transactions that were very, very small historically. So how are we different? Well, we want to do that again. We want to repeat the very successful model. And this is where the data drives. This is the first point I'm going to make is the data. We're a very data-driven organization. So is there proof of what we're saying, or are we just pontificating and making some, overarching, kind of societal moral statement? No, the data supports what we're saying. And the data, it's very, very concise. I've actually presented it to the United States Congress, and we built a congressional record around the legislation called the Main Street Growth Act that is very data-driven, because when the small public company market, different from that $5 trillion of private equity sitting there that is being cherry-picking the good deals, okay? When you go to the public markets, a small company has leverage. They can go and get an optimal valuation and price if the small markets are working properly. And so the large exchanges haven't really dedicated themselves to this for over 20 years. So what Dwayne was saying, we've seen the reversal of in fact, most IPOs are north of 500 million today. So the initial public offering, first time that a company sells its stock to the general investing public in America, you have to be a very, very large company today. So we want to cultivate that market, which really differentiates us right now. No one else is really concentrating in the public markets on cultivating those relationships and actually putting ourselves into the community to develop listings that our business plan long term is absolutely dedicated to doing. That's the first thing. But the other real differentiation is absolutely what was in the purpose video that we saw, which is it's not just there are plenty of good businesses and we want to support all of them. But what differentiates us is the evaluation method. How are we going to go about differently looking at what the company is doing and what its resources are, and in a way that will identify different companies than are currently always going to market. So today, for example, the technology marketplace, Silicon Valley, lots of IPOs, lots of great tech companies go IPO, and you see a lot of financial technologies and companies like that are getting a lot of funding, and they expand. And if you've got the newest, greatest app, you certainly have a high chance of succeeding someday in the public capital markets. But what about the companies that are building things or assembling things or our supply chain or in our communities, what we in the Midwest like to call the Rust Belt, somewhat of a condescending view of really good businesses that exist right here in the kind of Chicago-Milwaukee corridor in our surrounding area? What about those businesses? What if we lose those businesses? And it's not just because they're doing the living and the producing and the buying and the shopping and the dying in our communities. It's because that's where the next generation of great ideas will come from. The person who's sitting there trying to figure out how to make the metal alloys better in his steel bending, metal bending, or sheet metal shop, that person has an idea. Those are people who've been working on these things for many, many years. Sometimes they are entrepreneurs. They're dreaming about how they can make this one little shop into something very big. And the two things Gus kept emphasizing is it's capital, it's financial capital, and it's the resources that surround. And this is what makes us so different. It's the resources that surround that company that make it grow. And this is where the statistics and the data are very valuable. When the $50 million and under IPO market is thriving, unemployment in our country is at its lowest. And the IPO task force at the SEC once did a study, and this still holds true today. 92% of all jobs created in a company occur after its initial public offering. So when that company goes to the public markets, it employs 10 times more people. And if you find that there's no public companies, for example, in the Black community, well, you're missing 10 times the jobs from even the good companies. So we're trying to dedicate ourselves and differentiate ourselves in a way that marries with it prosperity. And we could stand on a moral soapbox. We could. But the fact is, it's a very pragmatic way to make our society flourish and prosper in a way that hasn't been done for decades, especially, as we've been noting, especially in the Black community. So we're very different than the other exchanges. Our brand is very different. Our business model is very different. We're looking for geniuses. We're looking for the best companies with the best ideas. But we're certainly also looking for, and the pilot company that we worked on to model how we would do this, they had about a 17% annual internal rate of return. That's how they grew, and they were a $100 million company, and we were able to put things together in advance and then let it fly into the public markets. Well, 17% is pretty good. Okay, it doesn't have to be that it's a venture capital evaluation where if we invest our money today, 2 years from now we can get 10 times our money back. Okay, that isn't every transaction, but 17% is awfully good. 17% builds wealth. I mean, and I'm saying 17, maybe it's 12, maybe it's 20, but those are really outstanding small companies. And there are thousands and thousands of them that are eligible to do this. And there are so many in the Black community that have never been talked to before. We want to have a physical presence and talk to people, get human beings interacting with other human beings, because I think communication and literally being there to help and providing that is the greatest differentiator of all, because there are large stock exchanges in the country, and I don't fault them in any way. They have responsibility to their shareholders. They have responsibility to the capital markets. They've been doing a job for many, many years. Our stock exchange marketplace is the best in the world. It's just this lane, this new brand that we've developed will operate within that environment, which is a good environment. It protects investors. It brings forth good companies. As I said in the opening video, the greatest inventions of the last 120 years have really come through the United States capital market funding. All of the inventions we have, all of the intellectual property, all of the imagination of the American public has been driven through our very, very sound capital markets. And we are just a differentiated organization that is dedicating itself to a segment of society that has been overlooked. And I'm not imputing any ill intentions to anyone, because that just doesn't matter anymore. What matters to us is that we do it now, that the time, this is an idea whose time has come, and the organization we built and the likes of Gus and Dwayne and the surrounding people and the management team we're building are going to be more dedicated to that purpose and expanding on that purpose in the years to come. So I think we're very different from your average ordinary stock exchange. And now that's one differentiation. The other is we have a very unique opportunity, which is we've built this and are beginning building it from scratch. So we have state-of-the-art technology. We're working with partners who have state-of-the-art technology. And the fact is that we don't have any legacy systems. We will be as state-of-the-art and as technologically competent as the best exchanges in the world. And that's a unique opportunity, because we're not taking something that has been built over the last 30 years and trying to change it. We can adopt all of the brand and philosophy into a new technology platform that also has at its core the need for the human beings to be interacting and developing the markets we intend to develop. So I think I covered that or a little more, Tom. So, and I don't want to run past our hour, but this is fun now. I'm actually really enjoying being able to listen a little bit on the webinars.
How about that?
I'm going to put this out, and we're going to start with Dwayne on this question. This idea, this concept it really is different. We've got, as I think Dwayne pointed out, we've got 7 existing exchanges right now. They're all kind of similar in many, many ways. We're going to be very, very different. So the question to Dwayne is how do we start to communicate the message out? How do we actually get the message out in a very broad manner to the world about what we're doing and the importance of the Dream Exchange?
Well, I think building from what Joe was saying about the kinds of things that differentiate us and the way that we're going to be, really very proactively seeking out businesses who have pretty much been left behind. As we build partnership, I see building this business through kinds of partnerships with the people who have been doing this work for a long time, trying to help these businesses, trying to help these communities in all kinds of ways. Educational institutions, civil and social rights organizations, people who have been doing the work but have been really confined. And when you think about it, business in the Black community has pretty much been relegated to banking relationships and government programs. Try to imagine what our behemoth of an economy would look like had Microsoft been required to deal with banks, only look to banks or to government programs. Not to knock banks or government programs. I mean, because then without them, we'd have nothing. But think about how different it would be had they were forced to rely upon those kinds of financial relationships to grow their businesses. It's not viable. It really is not viable. And that really speaks to why we have the extraordinary deficit of resources in our community. So as you think about messaging and talking about what it is we're going to do, we're going to actually be creating those messages in partnership with organizations who have been in I tell you, nobody's even thinking about that in the current environment. They're not thinking about that. That is not their approach because that's not how they've ever had to do business. Why would they think about that? We've thought about it because these are the organizations, the National Urban League, has chapters around the country that have been devoted to trying to build small businesses. And Chicago, has really stood in the forefront. In fact, that's how I met Gus years ago, working with that organization. Tom, that relationship came out of working with the Chicago Urban League. More than 10 years ago, we came together to try to help the Urban League to make a difference in the community because they were at the forefront of what was going on then. And as they've tried to move forward, every time they hit the same wall, it's access to capital. Because we're still limited to all of the same kinds of things. So to answer the question, we look to do the messaging in partnership with the kinds of organizations that have been doing this work for a long time and to help them do it better. Because we're going to have you will have access to the kinds of financial resources and human resources that will, that we will very generously share with all our partners because we understand that their success is our success. If we help them to do a better job at bringing in people, educating people, and we can help them actually both educate and access these resources, then we are building that messaging platform together. So we will have literally hundreds of organizations out promoting what it is that we together are doing. Because that's the only way this is going to happen, is if we are at such a deficit in the Black community, such a deficit. We have so far to go. Financial literacy, there's a persistent minority in the community, in the Black community, of people who have been, educated about these things when they were children, or picked up on the interest as they became young adults. But for the most part, they have been a persistent, small percentage of our community. We want to expand that. And we think by being creative with the use of technology, which is going to be critical, making things available online to people, demystifying this whole world of finance. Why should it be mysterious? Before I met Joe, and I can admit, before I met Joe and started learning about finance, I'm telling you, I could barely balance my checkbook. That was high finance for me, and I didn't have any money, so it wasn't very high. But, really understanding, even thinking about the capital markets, thinking about, why the inequities that have existed for so long in these communities, how they came to be that way. Not because anybody necessarily, now, some would argue, I could debate all day whether or not how much of this was intentional. But like Joe says, we can't get caught up in that, because if we get caught up in that, we'll never do what we're trying to do. We have got to take those realities and shape them in a way that we understand how it is from where we have to go, from where we are to where we have to go, and the people that have been doing the work to partner with them so that they can help inform our efforts and to promote our efforts. And if we do that well, this will be the best thing since sliced bread. For real. For real, for real.
We haven't heard from Gus in a while, so we're going to kind of direct, and we're starting to push up against the hour. So I want to get Gus involved here for a moment. You know, we've heard a lot of discussion about just this inability to get access to capital. But tell our audience, if you will, Gus, just, you know, kind of what are some of the practical things that we're going to be bringing to the table, things that they could do now. I mean, we're going to talk about timing here in a moment, Joe. We're going to tee you up for that question. But before we do that, Gus, can you share with our audience kind of some of the things that people can take advantage of now?
Yeah. So there are several things that people can take advantage of now, and then they're in their nascent stages, but we're growing and developing them every day. The first thing is if you go to our website, dreamex.com, DREAMEX.com, there's something on there called DX Connect. It's a community for business owners where we connect sources of funds, investors, businesses, and business support organizations together, where we create a space for communication to happen and collaboration to happen. And it's free. There are several hundred investors out there today, right? And you can go there to DX Connect and, you know, I know there are questions about, well, I've got a startup. How can I get help? Well, there are several hundred people out there looking for good ideas right now, and we're connecting you to them for free on DX Connect. So that's one thing that you can do right now. Another product that we have that's available that's less than a couple $100 is called an introductory company assessment. Investors invest in the jockey and the horse. So they're investing in the person running the business, and they're investing in the business and its model as well. So the ICA begins to give the investor an initial look at the jockey and the horse. So you're going to fill out a questionnaire that will talk about your business as it is today in its present state and the state of your management team. And then we'll be able to, you'll get some time with one of the members of our team to kind of give you a overview of kind of where we think your position and areas you may need to work on or not to be in a position to get money. Because one of the things that I've learned in working with Joe and Tom, sometimes it's things that people do that disqualify them to be investable, and they don't even know they did it. Why didn't they like my business? Right. It had nothing to do with the business and something to do with something over here with how you managed your company that you weren't even aware of. Okay, so the ICA will help you kind of stay out of harm's way. So you don't get an investment that you maybe qualified for, but you didn't know how the process to go about it, which leads to the third thing we do. It's called the Strategic Capital Development Plan. Strategic Capital Development Plan. Our team has developed a process, 16 steps to raising capital. There's 16 steps. I thought we just asked them for the money. No. We got to go through all this to get the money. Yes. You don't get married. You don't get married on the first date, right? So there's a 16-step process, and we have a process for those seeking under $10 million and those seeking more than $10 million to help you do several things. One is to put your strategic plan together, develop milestones that will drive the valuation of your company, to help you develop what are good terms and not good terms for your deal, and then help you develop some initial terms for your deal and introduce you to sources of funds. Get access to those people that have the money, that are interested in your industry, your stage of company, and the amount of money that you need to begin to help with that matchmaking service, so to speak. So those are things that are available today. And once our exchanges are launched and we're ongoing operation, there will be additional tools available for earlier stage companies who are in the friends and family and seed, angel and seed investing stages of their business as well. But we got to get these two exchanges done first because they are going to feed our ability to do the other things. Oh, one last thing. And On a limited basis, we're working with organizations, much like Dwayne mentioned. We're working with Chicago Urban League right now that has a program called the Next One Business Accelerator. And they've got a group of companies that need support, and we're customizing some initiatives to help them go from the level they're at today to the next step, right? So on a limited basis, because there are only so many of us, we're able to do that as well. And we're looking for organizations, business support organizations that are working with companies, groups of companies, to be able to help them move those companies along in terms of scaling their businesses. So that's what we're doing practically right now.
We're starting to approach the end of our time, so I'm going to kind of ask Joe a question here. So just tell us, in terms of timing, what we could expect for the Dream Exchange, as well as if you can, tell our audience how people can work with the Dream Exchange.
Sure.
We're going to do that, and then keep the questions coming in, because we are going to allow for time. We'll even spend extra time here with the panelists answering questions. So keep them coming.
Okay, so timing, and I'll go as fast as I can. This is probably, I don't know that I've necessarily announced this in any webinar or any press release, but at this moment, we're actually constructing the electronic platform. So, and I hate the word platform because it kind of cheapens the technological expertise. So we've added to our team. We have 3 very key people. Bruce Trask, who came over to us from the NASDAQ. He was the senior architect of the NASDAQ Stock Exchange. He's now our chief technology officer. We have Ray Edwards, who was a software engineer who really managed stock exchange order books in the past. He's now working with Bruce. So our senior leadership is in place, in addition to other resources that we're actually putting the code. I loved seeing some of the products the other day. I can actually see how the coding of the exchange, and watched a limit order flow through our platform about 2 weeks ago. So the production of actually putting a stock exchange into the kind of electronic universe is very much underway. In addition, we've added a chief information security officer. Tellis has just joined us. He's a wonderful person. And with our external security, our cyber security are all being, that's really foremost in my mind as the leader of the group. So the timing of actually applying for and getting a national market license, that there's no barriers to that, but us putting it there, actually building it and applying for it. We're probably about a year away from what I would consider to be the completion of or an initial launch of a national exchange. I don't think I'm overstating the case when I say it's 1 year. The venture exchange is another timing issue. There's going to be some very big announcements on the Main Street Growth Act coming up. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we do have some meetings coming up with Congressman Sherman and the House Financial Services Committee, because that too is a very important kind of aspect of our business plan, is this brand new legislation that will forever change how small capital markets function on stock exchanges. It creates a venture exchange as a licensed business entity at the SEC. It creates venture securities, which are brand new types of securities that currently don't exist. That too is ripe to be make its way through Congress and be signed into law very, very soon. I have high expectations for it this coming year. And the beauty of it is, with the construction of the exchange itself, to take what we've built and to make modifications so we have a venture exchange trading tier will be a fairly simple exercise, because we're doing all of that simultaneously. We're doing that with the venture exchange in mind right now. So I'm hoping that we can launch both within a very short period of time. The national exchange will probably precede the venture exchange, but our timing is still looking to be about 1 year, and we have some major announcements and some major milestones coming up. We have some major relationships that we're working on and working through terms with that we hope to be announcing in the coming couple of months. So that's really our timing. And very often, as Gus was saying, a lot of the questions are, what do I do now? How can I work with you now? How can I get started now? I can't emphasize enough the reaching out to us, communicate with us, and being in communication with our organization is a very valuable tool. It's how we developed a lot of what we're doing on the webinar today, because we get a consistent pattern of questions. How will this work? Now, and this was not a technical webinar where I get questions about how will this affect BACs and how will this affect private offerings and over-the-counter markets. And we have webinars that are dedicated to some of that information, and suffice it to say, we're very different than those marketplaces. SPACs will be allowed on our exchange the way they are on other exchanges. I can answer a lot of those questions, but the question of how you get answers to those questions is ask us. Just approach us. We're very affable. We like the questions. We invite public comment. We're a very transparent organization. So the first step would be just contacting us at all to engage in a dialogue. The second thing is, registering in DreamX Connect, which Gus alluded to. That is a kind of the social media of entrepreneurship is how I look at it. It's really dedicated, like a LinkedIn would be, to employment, to entrepreneurs. So go register your company, register your identity, go in. It's kind of a menu driven, like a Facebook or LinkedIn environment. You can scroll through it and select what type of company you are, what you're looking for. It does not have marital status like Facebook, but hope it's not part of your business plan. But the point is, it's very menu driven and friendly. We're actually working a bit on getting another launch that would be a little different. And staying informed on our progress is really important. The other thing is, you can follow the Main Street Growth Act. We look for help with that. Grassroots letters have been written to congressional leadership on the Main Street Growth Act, and we've had senators and congressmen responding. And that's been very favorable to helping make sure that the act passes. I think it's going to pass anyway, but lending your the support of the American voting public to the Main Street Growth Act by contacting your congressional and Senate leadership. The other thing is, we are working with the Chicago Urban League. So, in the community, we're reaching to help promote their program, which, it's coming. They're in their development stages of the next one program. So we want to help if you're interested in a candidacy to be one of the next one candidates. That we certainly would be able to introduce you at the Urban League, and you can go, and there's lots of tools. The fact is, we have these tools that should help you build, and that's part of all of those introductory products that Gus mentioned. Come through the line and contact us so that you can speak with senior management of the team and work with our group to be able to develop the tools you need. And then lastly, we have raised a considerable amount of money, and now we've now partnered with Dwayne's company so that there's the majority ownership. All of that is still progressing through its line very well, but there is a very limited opportunity to continue to be able to invest in the original Dream Exchange, what we've been referring to as the legacy investors, which it's a mixture. We probably have 150 people who've invested, and I would say we have many minority investors. I love the fact that there's probably it's probably as many as 40. I mean, Tom, you may know this number off the top of your head, but of that 150, I would say that we'll probably have maybe already 30 or 40 minority investors who are participating in round one. So round one is still open for a limited time, and you can go through a confidential briefing and determine your eligibility to invest. And we're complying with Regulation D, which is a private capital raising regulation. So if you're qualified to invest, just contact us and we'll be happy to take you through that process. And here's the other thing. On the screen, you don't have to go searching for this. There's an offer button that should be on your Webinar Jam screen. And if you just click on the offer button, there'll be different places that you can go to and links that'll take you right to getting this information. And that's really it. And I know you want to open it up to question and answer, and there's probably a lot of questions that are in the chat room already, Tom. But I just want to, before we do that, conclude by thanking everyone. I'm always really grateful that, we've had as many as 8,000 people on these webinars, sometimes a lot fewer, but to take an hour of your time out to find out what we're doing is very valuable to us, and to engage in the dialogue. This is, for all of us, a real labor of love. And I don't use that word lightly. I truly do love the people I work with. We've become a family. We've become a wonderful team. We're all doing our independent jobs. We're not necessarily having to talk all day, every day with each member of the team, but we are very powerful and small. And you are part of that. And I hope that you're well, and I hope you're flourishing. I hope you're doing well. And I hope the current societal effects are not hitting you too hard, if they're hitting you at all. And we want you to come and flourish and prosper with us. Join us to a future of flourishing and prospering. I think that if we all just flourish and we prosper and we do really well, the other things that tend to nag and nip at our heels, that's just going to go away. It'll just become less and less significant because we're all going to do so well. And we want you to join us in doing that. So the invitation is, come join our team. We actually have found a couple of employees through webinars, so we're not opening it up to the general. We tend to get a lot of resumes when I say this, but fine. If you think you want to work here too, that's an invitation. You can get into Brian Moxon, who's our Chief Administrative Officer, and see where we're going. We have posted things, but we're not posting for all the jobs yet, but we're looking for that too. We're going to be expanding and hiring and putting offices in cities throughout the country. So I think I covered it all. Let me just see. I have my team that sends me information while the webinar is going on to make sure I covered it all. I think I did. And like I said, my concluding comment is thank you so much. And go ahead, Tom. I don't want to go way past the hour with the question and answer, but I think that there's some questions already in the chat room.
A good number of questions. So we're gonna stick around for some time and answer them. So I appreciate that. Let me I'm kind of scrolling through right now. A lot of responses so far of just comments of great job, love what you're doing. So we really do appreciate those comments, that not necessarily questions, but they are very encouraging. So thank you for the nice comments. But let's go to a couple of questions here. What about, and this is for the panel, what about helping non-for-profits, working with HBCUs, business incubators? Let's talk a little bit about just kind of the types of groups that we can work with and partner with.
Yeah. You mentioned HBCUs, business incubators. There's a new business incubator actually in Atlanta that's been funded by, I believe, Goldman Sachs. And those are the kinds of organizations that we want to partner with to be able to source potential companies and the next great ideas. So when Dwayne was talking about, we're going to be involved in partnerships, community organizations, leveraging social media, and in our community, the church. It's a great place to reach people, right? So we'll be partnering with organizations that have access to entrepreneurs and great businesses. So the answer to those questions will be yes. Somebody mentioned, what is the Next One program? The Next One program is a 9-month business accelerator that is sponsored by the Chicago Urban League and several folks that fund it here in Chicago. The current cohort ends in March. There'll be another one in the first or second quarter 2022. So they're looking for businesses that want to grow and want to scale their business and to be a part of that cohort. So if you're interested in that, you can contact us and we'll put you in touch with Chicago Urban League.
And just to add to that very quickly, the questions about universities and training. This is a major initiative in our organization that I keep mentioning tools. What that really means, that's code for full, complete knowledge, because with knowledge comes power. And we want to empower these small businesses so that they really do understand everything. And we have initiatives, like I said, there's going to be some major announcements. We are working with educational institutions. I can't get ahead of myself, folks, but we have some partnerships on the way with major United States that you would know, household name educational institutions that are willing to work with us on their entrepreneurship program, certifications that will come out of their MBA programs in capital finance. So they're going to learn in college. And in fact, the one university that we're working with, and I'm going to get a little ahead, but that's okay because I know we're this close. The one university we're working with has already made announcements that they are dedicating themselves to ensuring they cultivate the Black community to apply to their university and go through the programs that we're now in the process of helping create. And they're spending money and dedicating professors and educational tools, and they see this need alongside us. And it's it's going to be a very significant announcement where the entrepreneurship right in a major urban area with Black students going to a university that will be dedicated to coming out with the program and a certificate that says, I know what I'm doing. I'm trained. I have the tools, and I'm going to help small businesses. We're actually looking to even hire some of those graduates. So yes, we are, and we are in the process of an outreach that would involve kind of a linking through some fraternities with HBCUs, but that's in its earlier stages. But we're definitely, we do realize that education is of primary importance, that we really do look carefully at making sure that the tools are there, because without the tools, I've been saying, okay, there's an old adage, if you give a man a fish, he has food for a day. If you teach a man a fish, he has food for a lifetime. I think we need to make sure that we teach the man to finance his fleet of boats. Okay, this is our purpose. This is not merely great, he knows how to fish, and when that one fisherman is gone, what do? No, we're going to have fleets of boats that are going to bring in the prosperity needed, so that this isn't something that we're revisiting as a societal issue a decade or 2 decades or 5 decades from now, and long past all of the people that. Sorry, I'm dating myself a little, and maybe I'll live that long. But this is why our purposes are long term. We want a genuine solution, and the genuine solution does come through working with educational institutions. And Gus is he may be aware, but he may not be aware of some of the relationships where major United States incubators that have received billions to create their incubator have already reached out to us to work with them. We're going to develop an incubator model so we can work with those people, as well as crowdfunding sites, because there are a lot of businesses that are going to get crowdfunded that need the next gradient steps up to capital markets. So all of the programs our goal is to get all those beautiful people and their ideas moving through the marketplace. So sorry, that's a longer answer, but it's all of our attention. And it is where we're going to dedicate our financial resources as we progress. So Tom, are you seeing some of those? Oh, sorry, Dwayne had a comment.
I want to stick a pin in that if I could.
Okay, sure, go right ahead.
I want to tie this back to the earlier conversation about dreams, because my dream has been for a long time in a very elusive way. The idea of being able to really use technology and human resources to pull together the infrastructure that would support ongoing educational programs like the kind that Gus talked about, the kind that Joe talked about, kindergarten through MBA and beyond. We have to meet people where they are. And in order to do that, when my son was in kindergarten at Ariel Academy, he was talking about producers and consumers. I didn't have those conversations until I took economics in college. Okay. His whole worldview was shaped as an elementary school kid because he went to a school that talked about these things. This is not mysterious information that's unavailable to people. It's just not being taught. It's not being prioritized. So my dream is to make sure that we prioritize the education of people wherever they are in the continuum, wherever, high school, junior high school. If you're interested in how to make money, if you're interested in, how to be your own boss, we want to help you get there. And through these partnerships that we talked about, our job, as I see it, is to be a facilitator and a creator of content. I want to assemble the best minds from academia, and we're doing now. This is not dream, but this is what we're doing. The dream part is to really have a network that covers the globe with this kind of education, because this is not just a domestic issue. This is a global issue. And so to build the infrastructure and the resources so that technology can be used to excite people about the prospect of being their own boss and living a fulfilled, successful, life that allows their families to thrive and their communities to thrive. Because if their families thrive, the communities thrive, have a much better chance at thriving. So as you can tell, we are not only passionate, but we're serious about this. And I don't know of any other business I've ever been associated with. Let me just say this for the record, where this kind of, soft effort was considered a priority. But we are only as successful, and we all know this, and this is why it's a priority. We will only be as successful as we are able to help people understand why we exist and what we do and why we do it. If they don't understand those things, then our success will be muted. We may make some money and a lot of money, but our success as we define it will be very limited, because if we're not helping people to understand why we're doing what we're doing in mass, then we have limited our market potential dramatically. Thank you.
Yeah, exclamation point on what Dwayne just said. And not that I could put icing on that cake. He's so eloquent, but that's the truth. The truth is that we've defined success in a particular way that is not temporary. It's not something that is transactional. It's something that the purposes of a long-term view, of a worldview, where, and I say this because I truly believe this. I write it to my team. I've been writing it from the very beginning. I have a vision of the world I want to live in, and it includes the vision of what we're doing, because with this vision, the world will be a better place. And that's what we're striving for. We want to survive better. We want those imaginative people, and we want every community flourishing, because we will be living in a better world. And that's a purpose that transcends finance. It transcends making products. It transcends the detailed mechanics of what I happen to be working on diligently every day, which is security information provider coding of a very technical stock exchange. And I love doing that, and our team loves doing that, because the purpose and the vehicle for doing it happens to make our endeavors in our life worthy of living, worthy of spending our life's time doing something important. So I'm saying that because I'm saying that on behalf of the entire group, because clearly every single one of the talented people that we have, we're up to about 17 people now. They could be doing something else, and they probably could be making considerably more money and wealth doing that thing. And we have come together as a kind of a band of brothers and sisters to make this a new world a reality through what we're doing. So I can't emphasize what Dwayne said enough. I love having partners who then I can share the information, because you're all making it easy. So anyway, I think there are more questions, Tom. I don't want to go too far past our hour.
We have some more. So, and we still have some, a number of people on. So we'll continue to answer those questions. I think, there's been, and I'm going to start grouping these together. There's a couple of questions regarding kind of the scope. Is this for international? Is this, a national? What's the scope or the reach of the Dream Exchange?
So yeah, the scope. I mean, let me just. I'll take that one quickly. It's a daunting scope, because we're interested in the smallest of companies from the most obscure places. We're also interested, we won't deny access to capital markets for a very large organization as well. We'll be a direct competitor of the other exchanges to the extent that the interest is there. And the global financial markets we will be part of that system. What I've been referring to as a proverbial seat at the table, where there are only 7 exchanges. There's certain regulatory issues that we will get to weigh in on. But we will be there with our eyes and our ears and our attention in a new way in the future that is global finance. And I don't think that we've even begun to imagine some of those challenges yet, but we're up for it. I think to the extent that any problem that's ever confronted the human condition, we've been on this blue marble for thousands of years. We've confronted many problems to our survival, and I think that the only reason that we haven't solved everything is not for a lack of human ingenuity. I think we all know how to go about the solutions. So as a global community, when we participate in that community as we grow, we want to answer why. Why would we do this? Why would we? And the answer always would have to be because we're looking for economic prosperity in all areas of life, so that we all survive better. So when we look at the mechanics, we had the Manhattan Project. Overnight we created nuclear fission and weapons of mass destruction. What if we just took our energy, our human energy, and poured it into something, an endeavor like the Dream Exchange, as this group is doing, and we really dedicated ourselves to making a difference? How different would the world look if we were able to create the solutions to these types of problems? And all we're doing is calling attention to it with pragmatic ability to actually reach down and not just talk about help, but deliver on the promise of help in the dreams of people who are globally looking for these types of solutions. And it all begins with us becoming established, and then we can really send the senior messaging, and the policy behind our purposes will flow into the areas where we won't be doing the things that are destructive, and we'll be doing more things that help us to survive better as a human race. That is the global. It is not something that is merely for a city or a state or a country. This is it has very lofty purposes to if we're going to think big, this is the biggest thing we can think of. And I love hearing Dwayne talk, because he has eloquence that I just adore. So I hope I answered that question. I don't know if if there's more.
Maybe one more. I'm going to just kind of jump in. And again, I appreciate it. This has been phenomenal. I mean, we've got so many people that have stayed on for this question and answer session. So thank you for doing that. There's been a whole bunch of questions. We get these a lot. Questions are regarding blockchain and cryptocurrency and some of those types of things that are, in the news a lot. So maybe just be able to talk to, in general, what, how do we intend to incorporate those types of emerging technologies?
So I can answer the blockchain without answering cryptocurrency. So there's a differentiation there. We are utilizing, as we speak, flexible blockchain technology in the coding of our exchange right now. So we're not waiting. That the flexibility and how we're doing the incorporation of programming and construction of the exchange, we are technically using blockchain technology in our coding today. So, and that forever answers that question. Yes, we're using blockchain. On the other hand, whether the currency markets and the Bitcoin and the various coin currencies that use blockchain to promote themselves, and will they ever interact with stock exchanges? Will there be coin currency offerings? Because there's initial coin offerings which are not part of securities exchanges. A lot of that is going to be waiting to see what the SEC, the regulator, weighs in at, and they've done a little in early stage weighing in as to whether or not the stock exchange environment versus the commodity exchange environment versus the kind of unregulated environment, where that will all fall. We're prepared for it. I do believe that the cryptocurrency marketplace is still in need of its next step, which is still unknown to everyone. And the next step is when a cryptocurrency or any coin currency, electronic currency, is no longer using the exchange currency of the world, which is the US dollar, and something transitions to, I can just use my coin currency to pay for my Starbucks or my car. When that starts to evolve, there'll be an aggregation and a consolidation and emergence. And I'm very familiar with this because I was there at the beginning when Archipelago created the first ever electronic environment to trade stocks. So we have hundreds of coin currencies that are out there, but they're still using the world reserve currency, which is the US dollar. It's denominated in dollars. What is a Bitcoin worth? Well, you have to say it in dollars. So when that evolves a bit longer, and they're here to stay, but I don't know the answers to those questions, but we are prepared for that, and we are using the bleeding edge, state of the art technological, blockchain technology incorporated into what we're building at the exchange. I alluded to that in the webinar. We're first. We have a clean slate to develop from, so we're able to develop initially utilizing that technology. And I'm glad I'm able to answer that question a little bit more fully. It's come up many, many times, but yes, we're incorporating blockchain technology into the exchange as we speak.
Excuse me.
I've been doing that.
You got him all choked up. Look at it.
Who knew that was going to choke Tom?
Who knew? He cares so much about blockchain.
Brings a tear to my eye. I think we've got most of the questions have been answered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around, ask for some final thoughts, and then we'll end our program. Thank you again, panelists, for just a great program.
Shall I start?
Go ahead and start.
Sure.
Well, I also want to thank the people who've tuned in and taken the time to find out more about what it is we're doing here. I'm excited about this. And anybody that knows me knows I'm excited about it because I talk about it a lot. But, it's unusual to have a job where you want to get up and you're really excited every day about the possibilities. Not only that, but you're working with people who share that excitement. and that commitment. That is what is so unique about this experience for me. You know, I've been around, you know, I've had some exciting, all that, but even with the exciting jobs, I honestly could never feel as if I was doing something that was really going to justify the space I'm taking up on this planet. You know, it might have made me feel real good, but it was not really, you know, scratching the itch that my parents instilled in me that, you know, you really need to be doing something out here, because to those who much is given, much is required. And that, I think, is a guiding principle for everybody, not only on this webinar, but for everybody so far associated. People really, really have drunk the Kool-Aid and are believing it and are trying to make it happen. And we all recognize that if it doesn't happen, you know, the world will simply not be what it could be, because we're not moving in a direction where small businesses are getting more help, not the help they need. You know, there may be more government programs, there may be, you know, more lenient banking regulations, but you're not going to grow or thrive in a business environment if you do not have access to capital. Public, private, you've got to have access to capital in ways that are not the ways that have, particularly in our community, been dominant, overwhelming dominant. So to be able to get up every day and to think about all the creative things that we can do, to work with other people who've been in the vineyard in one way or another, trying to help people, is just very exciting to me and very fulfilling, very fulfilling. So, you know, I really have to take my hat off to Joe, to Tom, who's, you know, sacrificed so much, to Gus, who I've known for a while and who is my kindred spirit. You know, this is a team of people, and the others who are not up front right now, but who are making all this happen, you know, who are dedicated to this. You know, these people, you know, we're changing the world. That is not hyperbole. We are changing the world. And so if you want to do something that's going to help you change the world for the better, then you need to check us out and get on board, because this train is pulling out the station. We'll be around a while, but if you want to be an early, what do you call it, an early adopter, then you need to get with the program. Okay, we appreciate you. You know, we really do love what we do. We love each other, and we love you, and we're working hard for you. You know, because we can't spend all this money by ourselves. So let's do this thing. All right, let's do it.
So I'm going to jump in, and I would say this isn't. I don't have a job here. This is a movement and a calling.
Okay.
And so the reality is, our vision is to provide from cradle or nascent idea to public markets what businesses need in terms of access to capital, both financial and human, to grow. So all your questions about that, the answer is yes. It's just a matter of when, okay,
right,
and priority. And I encourage you, and this is real. The intention of the people is real, for the right reasons to be doing this. So continue to ask your questions, continue to kick the tires, okay, continue to probe, but you'll find out it just gets better. Okay, so we're excited to be on this road. We know it won't be without opposition or difficulty, but we're committed to seeing it through. Okay, so there's hope in Chicago with Justin Fields.
Well,
yeah.
Amen. Amen.
And just so you all do know, Gus is an employee. He is, but it is not his job. Understood? It is your job, but it's not your job. So, and I guess my parting remark is, I've failed to do this before. A lot of the comments, this happens every webinar, is there's encouragement. And when I say participate, I love reading the comments that you enjoyed the presentation, or that you were encouraged, or were helping to change your view, or the cheerleading. I love that. Actually, that I've said this repeatedly. That's my paycheck. I'm getting paid to because there are many dark days. I've often said you're not a real entrepreneur until you put your payroll on your credit cards at least once. And I've actually guilty of having done that in the past, because we need to. The mission has to be accomplished, and so what lets me know and lets our whole team know that we're on the right track are those words of encouragement. Are there things to work out? Sure, there are. Everybody wants to know how we're going to work with crowdfunding. And I love answering the question. Crowdfunders, come to us, because after you've gotten your first round of crowdfunding, you have no exit. So we will be your exit. We will be listing crowdfunded companies. We want to work with every crowdfunding portal out there. We have no opposition to working with all those organizations that are aligned with our purposes, but we're a different and unique, as I said in the beginning, we're very unique. It's a very different organization. A stock exchange is different than crowdfunding, brokerages, investment banks, banking. We're different, and we're able to do things that those organizations can't do especially when we're licensed with the venture exchange. So I want to thank you all for all of the words of encouragement. That means a lot to us. And thank you for your time. Almost all of the people have stayed, and we're at an hour and a half. So obviously we're giving you the right message. And look at all of our webinars. Check out our YouTube channel. We have all kinds of information that is equally encouraging, and will hopefully give you the tools you need and the information. And like I said, contact us. So thank you again very much. And I hope you flourish and prosper and join our group. That's my parting comment. Tom, how about you? Your last.
I was thinking about this. I had the opportunity to work with the three of you for a very long time, and it's an honor to work with all of you. You guys are my brothers, so I really appreciate that. And it's good to we're kind of back to back hitting all four directions, and along with the rest of the team. So I just appreciated, all the sentiments that you've echoed. I echo as well. So I just appreciate you guys. I appreciate, all of the people over especially the last couple of years. I'm getting personal texts on my phone from people who are on the call, and it's just, again, really encouraging. So thank you very much. Visit us at www.dreamx.com. And we look forward to doing another one of these panel discussions very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.